In this video, we're going to set up a laser projectile in the Projectile Factory. We're going to be following along with the scripting documentation. It has all the instructions written out with some examples on the doc site. You can get to the documentation by going to infinitypbr.com and clicking on the scripting docs. It's also linked in the description of the packages on the asset store. All right, we've got our laser lance beam. This is from the Pro Effects Sci-Fi particle package. I'm integrating that right now. And this has a line renderer on it. And so we're going to set up a laser that uses a line renderer. There could be other ways of doing lasers, but for this one, this is the most common laser setup for any particle package I've come across. By far is the line renderer method of doing this. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is remove the custom script from the particle. We're going to be handling all of the logic for lifecycle and other changes through Projectile Factory, so we don't need the custom scripts that came with the particle. We are going to add a projectile from Magic Pig Games. For projectile data, we're going to choose the damage over time. This is one of the example data objects that come with the package, and it essentially computes the damage per frame rather than as a one-time amount. And for the spawn behavior, let's choose laser 2. And we're going to choose laser 2 because in this example we have 2 barrels. This is similar to the Forge 3D Sci-Fi Effects demo, which has 2 barrels as well. If we look at this, we see that the number of projectiles is listed as 2 here, and the switch barrels between shots is set to true. That means when we actually fire this, there will be a very short delay between the 2 barrels, but 2 will start at once, and they won't stop until we let go of the fire button. So that essentially means one barrel will get one, the second barrel will get the second one. If you have a spawner that only has 1 barrel, then you can choose the laser 1 or just change this value to 1. Next, we're going to add a raycast shooter. This is a helper method that comes with the Projectile Factory, and it basically shoots a raycast from the origin, the spawn position, and looks for the collision point, and then it passes that data to other objects that will handle the raycast. The raycast shooter itself doesn't actually handle the hit. Other objects, other components will take that and handle it in whatever way that they're set up to handle. And the first one of those is going to be a line renderer length component. So if we look at the script real quick, we see that it implements I handle raycasts. And this is the implementation that the raycast shooter will be looking for in order to pass that data into other objects. And you'll see that method here, handle raycast hit. We'll keep the default values here for a default distance of 50. And now let's set up the projectile behaviors here. So in the spawn modification, find the parent to spawn point. That will ensure that the projectile itself parents itself to the spawn point and stays with the barrel of the gun or other spawn or whatever the thing is that's shooting out the projectile. And then in the behaviors tab, we're going to add a destroy on spawner stop. And this basically says, hey, when the spawner is called to stop, that's when the player in this demo takes their finger off the trigger button, then we are going to destroy the projectiles. By destroy, we really mean destroy or send back to the pool. In the demos, we're going to send it back to the pool. And then we're also going to add a collision at line renderer end. And we currently have this one set to a 0.25 radius. And so this will take that line renderer, and wherever the end is, it's going to cause a collision in a radius of 0.25. So objects that are within that radius will be collided with. And that triggers the collision behaviors on any other behaviors that you have set up here. So part of the juice with lasers is a muzzle particle and an impact particle. We don't have to have those specifically set up on the behaviors here. Instead, we can set them up on the object itself. In the knife entertainment package, we see the laser lance is all here. And so we have the muzzle flash, and I'm going to bring that up, and also the shells. I'm going to bring that up. And finally, the impact, we'll bring that up as well. Those are the 3 things that this publisher has created that work with the laser lance, and so we'll use those directly. Now, we do need to change some of the scripting here. The way their demo scene is set up is they have this group emitter, which handles the emission of particles directly. And if we look into the actual particles, we have this one, and it's not looping. So we don't want to have to worry about calling this to emit every X time. We just want it to loop. So we're going to turn looping on, and we're going to change that emission to be, instead of 1, we can change this to something like 10 over time. And we're going to do a similar thing to the other particles as well. Now, I've also found that these tend to be a little small, and so I've been increasing the size of them. I have some helper scripts. If you'd like to use them, you can go to Windows, Magic Pig Games, set particles. And I've been creating these helper scripts here. This one will set the start size to 3 times whatever it is now, and this one will divide it by 3. If I click this, then all of these, the particles, their start size will now be triple what they were before, and things will just be a little bit larger, which I found to be more pleasing to the eye and more exciting. So I've just been doing that. All right, with those set up, I'm also going to just unpack this prefab. Since we're changing everything here, we don't want to necessarily overwrite these later with any changes from the original. These are just now basic objects that we're using for this version, which we're going to make a new prefab of. All right, let's make sure all the objects here are positioned at 0, 0, 0. They are. And in our impact object, we're going to add a set position from raycast component. This is another iHandle raycast component, and it's going to set the position to the end of the raycast. Now, it does automatically look to set itself up, but make sure that the plumbing is correct, that this transform is selected, and the transform that's the base for the raycast itself is also selected. Now, you do have some other options here. Generally, I would suspect that the default options are correct. And as an optional thing, we can also add force. So I'm going to add a project force. And this is going to project, we'll keep a force mode force. That's a way it's a constant force. And we can add something, I don't know, what will be accurate or what will look right. So we'll just add 300, and we can make this force not in a direction, and maybe make it a very small radius so that it adds some force at the collision point. And this can be a constant force with the force mode set to force versus impulse. All right, let's go ahead and save this as a prefab. I'm going to drag this down into my integrations projectiles as an original prefab. And then we do need to set the layer to be projectile. You can do that down here, but if you've been making a lot of these and you don't know if all of them have their layer set, you can go to the window, Projectile Factory, Helpers, Set Layer of All Projectiles, and then choose the layer. Projectile should be selected automatically for you. Click OK. All the prefabs that have a projectile component on their parent will have their layer set to projectile. Okay, we'll bring this in as a projectile on the demo actor here and press play. All right, so the laser is working in practice. The logistics of how it works is working. We've got 2 lasers. We've got the impact happening, the collision is happening. They're colliding with the targets right there, and the triggers are being set for damage. But of course, the lasers themselves are not accurate. So we got to figure out why the laser beams themselves aren't really being shown. And it looks like our material on the line is set to default. So let's figure that out. And I see the issue here. They have the line as a child, and our line renderer here was automatically added by the raycast shooter. So to solve for this, we're just going to copy this component and then paste the values into our line renderer up here. And then we will remove this line and of course remove this temporary import. And let's give that a try. So the only issue here is now the muzzles appear to be in the wrong position. So let's just confirm that real quick. Oh, I see. So all of these do seem to be offset a little bit, or some of them seem to be offset, this one in particular. So let's bring those back, and we're just going to put these all at 0. There we go. And now we've got a laser particle working both of our barrels, causing damage, looking great, doing all the cool stuff. There we go. That's how you convert a laser from one of the particle packages into Projectile Factory. And of course, if you are setting up your own laser, it's not from the asset store, you would follow a similar method to do the same thing. If you have any questions, come to the Discord, and I hope to see you real soon. Bye.